Let's say that you have a home that you love, that you want to put a contract on. There could be things about that house which would make it uninsurable. If it's uninsurable, there's no way to get a mortgage on it. What are some of those factors? So today we're going to talk about insurance in relation to homes and real estate here in Florida. Somebody who's buying a house, what is it that they're going to need to give the insurance company in order to get an accurate quote on insurance?
Well, first of all, the description of the house, where it's located. A lot of things that factor into the rates is year built, what it's made of, where the location is. A lot of different factors go into it as far as getting credits, which a lot of people don't realize in inspections. One of them is called a wind mitigation inspection.
Yeah.
It's not a pass or a fail inspection.
Right.
It's how the home is constructed and how much credit can we give towards the premium with those results.
Okay, so the wind mitigation is something that the home inspector does typically when the house goes under contract,
Yeah.
and then they would give it to you guys, the insurance company. How greatly can that affect the actual quote?
A huge impact. It could
Okay.
be a great impact. It could be a lesser impact. Again, there's a lot of factors into it. The way the roof is shaped, the way it's connected to the house. Also, are there wind protection devices? Is it up to code? That is probably one of the biggest things because houses built after 2002 have different codes that they have to abide by. So all those factor into the premium. It can really, really, really address how much credit you can get.
Okay, so somebody might get like 3 of those credits. Someone might get 5.
Yeah.
Some, like a brand new house would typically have like all of the credits.
Yeah, they're going to
Okay.
get the maximum. A house that's usually built after 2012, a lot of the carriers will automatically factor in the maximum credit that they can get. Where they can get a little bit more is verifying what kind of opening protection they have. Or if you're getting an alarm system, stuff like that, there's a little more credits available.
If I have a house and let's say that the roof is not attached in the ideal way, is there things that people can do to get the credit, or is that typically even worth it to do like a retrofitting?
Yeah, there is a retrofitting that they can do. There's a lot of contractors that specialize just in that retrofitting. And it can, in the long run, help you quite a bit. If you really love that house and you really want that house, that's something to really weigh out.
And is it worth it? And I know this is something that a lot of people assume that it's definitely worth it to pay thousands of dollars to have shutters installed if the house doesn't have it. Does that typically give enough credit to make it worthwhile?
Not right off the bat. They're not going to get that exact credit at the moment.
Okay.
You got to look at the longevity of what's going to be there. Before, it was a very, very heavy credit that you got for the opening protection, but now it's more on how it's designed, how it's constructed, how it's attached to the home, compared to just giving you shutters on the windows. And it's got to be on every opening too.
Right. So some people don't realize that if they even have a small little window that doesn't have any protection, they get no credit for the
Correct.
shutters.
That makes it null and void. They don't get everything on it. That is a huge factor.
There's another inspection that's basically required for houses over a certain age. Is it like 30 years?
30 years is usually the term for it, and it's a 4-point inspection.
Okay.
And the 4 points are the roof, the AC and heat, the electrical, and the plumbing.
Yeah.
That they've all been updated or they have valued life of over 5 to 10 years. The roof is probably one of the biggest factors. If you have an 18, 19-year-old roof, the companies really want to know that there's extra life in that roof.
Okay.
Because a lot of times they're getting into the situation that roof's past its years, they're buying into a claim that they're going to have to replace that roof.
So if I really wanted to close on the house, could they give like a 30-day period so that I could replace the roof after closing, or would it typically not be able to get coverage if I had that 19-year-old roof?
There are some companies that will work with it, and that's the benefit of dealing with an independent agent. You have more than one company to deal with. Different carriers will do different things for you, and customize too. Customize the policies where it's not just the cookie cutter, you're getting XYZ for like your personal property. You can customize it that way. But yes, some will work with you on it, give you actual cash value, then replacement cost until you replace the roof. So yes.
Okay, they could give me that time to go in and do it. So what are some other things that would typically fail on a 4-point?
Electrical, the aluminum wiring. Homes built in the 90s, 80s, and 90s had aluminum wiring put in it. And the problem with aluminum wiring is when you have heat and cold, it contracts and expands, and it can arc. So there have been many claims over the years with aluminum wire. That's a big no-no.
So are they accepting these Alumicons, the retermination, or are they even
They're
going away from
starting
that?
to go away from it. Some companies will, very little companies companies will accept those connectors. They want the whole house rewired.
Okay.
Yeah.
Aluminum wiring. What about polybutylene piping?
Yes, the polybutylene piping is a no-no. When people look under a sink, they think, well, everything's plastic. What we're talking about is plastic throughout the walls, into the flooring, into the foundation, that it's a plastic tubing that has been known to fail.
Yeah.
Usually the standard is copper. You're using copper throughout the house. So that would disqualify somebody writing the policy.
Right. And the home inspectors would actually note that
Yep.
on the 4-point. You have the polybutylene, and that would become a serious issue.
Basically, when you look under a sink and you see the supply line coming out and you see it's plastic, you know right away that that's the situation.
Yeah. I know that there's certain brands of electric panels that typically people say, well, that's going to be a problem getting insurance, like the Federal Pacific. Is that still an issue?
That's correct. That's still an issue with some carriers. Some other ones have let it go and said that's fine. And it all based on claims. They've had an experience with a situation where that failed, and they've had numerous, not just one or two, but there's been numerous
So at some
claims.
point there was a fire with a Federal Pacific panel, and they realized that was
and
the
they
problem.
pointed right to that situation.
So typically, if you are going to buy a house and you know it's got that, you try to get the seller maybe to swap it out before closing.
That's a negotiation, yeah.
I know that some insurance companies, some of the big brands, they have essentially their product or their policies they can offer, whereas you can shop from a lot of different carriers to get a quote for your clients. Why is that an advantage, again, price-wise?
Well, throughout the years, when you have the losses, carriers will start increasing their rates at different levels. There's not a cookie cutter rate that they're going to do all the time. So the choice of having different carriers to choose from is going to give you more an advantage for customizing your policy. Also, too, there's other carriers that are adding coverages such as flood, whereas flood has always been a separate policy that you had to get through FEMA or the National Flood Insurance Program.
Yeah.
So when I refer to that, flood is a definition of rising water coming into the house, not a pipe busting, not the roof coming off because of hurricane and it rains coming in, but it's actually the water has nowhere to drain and it comes into the home. Carriers now are adding an endorsement that you can get flood insurance put onto it, to their homeowner's policy. And the advantage to it, the biggest one, is you get replacement costs on your contents. They're not depreciating the value. Also, it includes loss of use of your home if there was a flood, whereas the NFIP program and the FEMA program does not offer those benefits.
So if I have currently, and I'm currently paying for a separate flood policy and then my home insurance, I could look into saying, hey, I could have that as a part of my policy and probably save money on that.
Correct. And also, too, you're getting the same carrier. You're getting the same company at providing the same coverage. You don't have somebody going, which came first, the chicken or the egg?
Yeah.
Flood happened, or did a hurricane take my house? It's all covered under one policy, though.
So a lot of people out there, if they're not in a high-risk flood zone, don't have flood insurance. What would you say to those people?
Most flood claims come from the non-hazard or the non-high-risk zones. For that reason, people think, hey, I don't need it. The mortgage company's not expecting me to have it, so I'm going to let it go. More times, probably 80% of the claims come from that zone.
Well, I remember seeing the flooding in Houston and some other flooding, and then hearing that 80% of those people, or what, I don't know the actual number, but a large percentage did not have flood insurance.
Correct.
And it's kind of shocking that, look, and the water's like 6 feet high and they didn't have flood insurance. So I can see that it doesn't matter where you are, if you can afford it, you should have it.
People think I'm not near a lake, I'm not near the ocean, I might have a small retention pond near me. What happens, those cases, is a lot of times debris clogs the drainage system. You've got dryness for months in the summer, then here comes that storm. All the debris goes in, clogs the system, it backs up just like a drain in your home, and it backs up in a bigger scale. That's flood.
Yeah, I remember Tropical Storm Faye, there was subdivisions, and it had to do with the drainage, like the town and the county drainage systems, and that was not ready, or it wasn't.
They couldn't handle it.
Yeah. And those houses were never expected to be in a flood
zone.
No,
my neighborhood was, my street.
The water was,
my street was 2-3 feet underwater.
And the normal home insurance would not cover that damage.
Correct. That is usually an excluded peril. Yep.
So, Paul, I know from having dealt with clients after a hurricane comes through that a lot of people that I talk with are reluctant to make a claim, even though they had legitimate hurricane damage. And what they'll say is, well, I don't want my rates going up. They're afraid to make a legitimate claim because they feel like, I'll just cover it because I don't want my rates going up. Is that a valid concern for them?
It's a misconception. Okay. People think you're buying the insurance.
Right.
By all means, contact your agent, discuss it first, number one.
Okay.
No matter what type of claim it is. and they're going to guide the appropriate way. They should. As far as a natural disaster, something in an act of nature, that is not something that goes against you as far as claims is concerned. And rates are not calculated on an individual. It's more qualifying for the program. If you had a liability claim, you might not get the insurance coverage because the carrier says, I don't want that claim. I don't want your risk because of that situation. It's not that they're going to raise your rates individually. Rates are filed with the state on a yearly basis.
So I might be declined if I have too many liability suits against me.
Correct. You're not going to qualify.
Too many leaky pipes or fires just happen to be
exactly. And a lot of times too, water claims, water damage claims from pipes leaking is a huge claim in Florida. But if it's a smaller one, they'll take it, usually when it's under 10,000 or more. But the rates, again, it's not going to affect your rate individually like auto insurance. Auto insurance,
too many accidents, your rates are going up.
Exactly. You've got a bad driver on your record, with tickets and what have you. They individually underwrite you on the auto, but not necessarily on the homeowners. Yeah.
Okay, so after a hurricane, someone's got damage, they know what their deductible is, they shouldn't hesitate to contact their insurance agent. So
they should not.
That's an
and the biggest thing too that the carriers want you to do is if something happens, like let's say damage to your roof, they want you to protect yourself as quick as possible for further damage. They want you to do that. A lot of them have contractors that they basically certify that you can use in those type of situations.
People I know when they're shopping for mortgages and loans that they feel like, I've already called 2 lenders, gotten their rates and their offerings. I don't want to call too many because that will negatively impact my credit score. How does it work when I'm shopping for, let's say I've already got a quote for insurance, I want to maybe get 3 quotes or 4 quotes. What would you say about that? Does that negatively impact me at all shopping?
No, the homeowners do look at credit. They ask for bankruptcy, if there's bankruptcy and what have you. But if you give that information, it's called a soft hit. They don't go back and say, hey, you're borrowing $100,000. We need to see the hard credit information. It does not go against you. It does not affect your credit score whatsoever. And a lot of times you don't have to give your social security. You can give just your prior address and your date of birth, and they're able to find out what they need to go forward and give you. And it will adjust your price. If you've got some really good credit, carriers will give you more of a better rate than that.
Okay. So if I've had my policy for years and I have no idea whether I'm overpaying or not, so would you advise people to, is it once a year, every couple of years, just get a quote on their home and see if they can save some money?
Best thing I'd say is using an independent agent. That's what they can do. That's the advantage of having all the different carriers. Let us shop it within ourselves to see who is the best out there right now as far as the rates are concerned. But yes, you should be looking at it or inquiring about it on your renewals with your agent.
So that's an annual renewal?
Annual renewal. But if you don't, it's going to go right by. It's going to, especially if you have an escrow account with a mortgage company, you're going to get maybe something in the mail 3 months ahead of time or 2 months ahead of time. And if you don't act upon it, they're going to turn around and pay the premium and go on.
I would bet you that there's a lot of people watching this that if they actually called, showed what they have, could actually save money on their policy.
There's a lot of different ways to do it. There's a lot of different ways to customize policies too. Some people think, I don't have that much stuff in my house. I don't want to cover all that. And on the other end of the spectrum, people don't realize, wow, I do have a lot of things. I maybe need to do something different and add a different policy, scheduling things. I have a lot of valuable items, artwork, jewelry, stuff like that.